They were young, they were glowing, and they were dying. At first, it seemed glamorous, fun, even magical. The girls who worked with radium came home lit up like lanterns, their skin shimmering faintly in the dark. Their dresses sparkled under their bedroom lights. Their teeth shone when they smiled. No one had told them that the glow was a warning that death had already entered their bodies, that they had swallowed it again and again and again. They were just teenagers, factory girls, hired for their delicate hands and fine motor skills, taught to mix the paint, dip their brushes, and shape them to a perfect point between their lips. They did it instinctively. Lip, dip, paint. Dozens of times an hour, hundreds of times a day. The luminous substance they used was called undark, a radioactive paint made of powdered radium mixed with zinc sulfide. It clung to their skin, their clothes, and their bones. It coated their work tables and drifted through the air. Every girl in the studio was breathing it, inhaling it, swallowing it, and no one stopped them. In fact, they were told it was good for them. In the 1910s and 1920s, radium was considered a miracle element. Discovered by Marie and Pierre Curie, it glowed without heat and appeared to defy the laws of nature. It was used in cancer treatments, sold as a tonic, added to face creams and toothpaste, and marketed as a health elixir. People drank it in spas, applied it to their skin, gave it to their children. The public was entranced. So when the U.S. Radium Corporation in New Jersey began hiring women to paint watch dials with radium, it wasn't considered hazardous. It was considered cutting edge. The job paid well, especially for women. It was viewed as respectable, modern work. Grace Fryer, Molly Magia, and hundreds of others were proud to be part of it. They painted wristwatches for soldiers, gauges for aircraft, compasses for naval crews. Their work lit the faces of time itself. And as they painted, they chatted, they sang, they laughed and flirted with each other between tasks. No one wore gloves, no one wore masks. Supervisors told them the paint was safe, even nutritious. Some girls painted their fingernails with it, others decorated their eyelids or teeth for parties. At night, they walked home glowing faintly in the dark, glamorous, otherworldly, envied. But beneath the surface, the poison was already at work. The first sign came with a toothache, then another, then ulcers in the mouth that refused to heal. Molly Magia, a vibrant, smiling worker in her early 20s, developed an aching jaw in 1921. She went to a dentist. He pulled the offending tooth, but the socket never closed. Instead, it festered. Then her next tooth loosened. When the dentist tried to remove it, a piece of her jawbone came with it, crumbled, brittle, almost chalk-like. Her breath began to stink of rot. Her face swelled. The pain deepened, unrelenting. By May 1922, she could no longer eat. A grapefruit-sized abscess had erupted in her cheek. The infection spread into her ears, down her throat. Her lower jaw disintegrated entirely. She died that September. Her death certificate blamed syphilis. Her family was horrified. Her co-workers were terrified. And the company remained silent. Behind the scenes, executives had begun to suspect something. Internal memos circulated. Quiet investigations were commissioned. But the results were kept from the workers. Researchers hired by the company, including Dr. Cecil Drinker of Harvard, submitted findings showing the plant was filled with radioactive dust. The workers' clothing was contaminated. Their breath measured radiation. The girls were absorbing it through their skin and ingesting it through their mouths. The company edited the report. They removed the damning evidence, and they buried the truth. Grace Fryer had been one of Molly's co-workers. She too had begun to suffer. Her spine was aching. Her jaw throbbed, but she wasn't just afraid, she was determined. She began documenting her health, collecting medical records, contacting lawyers. She went to court. And she found herself up against a wall of silence and sabotage. The legal system was not made for women like her. She was poor, young, and sick. The companies had teams of lawyers, powerful connections, and deep pockets. They delayed the case, demanded more evidence, questioned her character. They dragged it out for years, hoping she would die before she could win. She nearly did. By the time the case went to trial in 1927, Grace could barely walk. Other women had died. One of them had collapsed in court. Another arrived on a stretcher. Reporters began covering the case. Public sentiment shifted. And finally, after years of denial, the truth was laid bare. Radium was killing these women. The companies had known. They had lied. But that was just the beginning. While the New Jersey factory was facing lawsuits, a second site in Ottawa, Illinois, was still operating. There, the Radium Dial Company was painting dials and training new workers to lip point their brushes. Despite all the evidence from New Jersey, the Illinois executives insisted the paint was harmless. They told the women to ignore the rumors. They mocked the lawsuits as hysteria, and they kept the brushes moving. Among the new hires was Catherine Donahue. She was devout, soft-spoken, and loved to dance. She had no idea that she was swallowing a death sentence every time she shaped her brush. By 1931, she began limping. Her legs ached, her jaw locked shut. X-rays revealed her bones were glowing from within. Doctors were horrified. The company was unmoved. Catherine filed a lawsuit, joining other workers in a desperate attempt to hold Radium Dial accountable. The trial was brutal. She testified from her deathbed. Her weight had dropped to less than 60 pounds. She was too weak to sit up. Her voice was a whisper, but she told the truth, calmly, firmly, with tears in her eyes. Radium Dial denied everything. Their lawyers argued the paint was safe. They accused Catherine of exaggerating, of lying. The judge ruled in her favor. Catherine died weeks later. Her bones were later exhumed and tested. They were still radioactive. What made radium so lethal was its mimicry of calcium. Once inside the body, it embedded itself into bones, particularly in the jaw and hips. It didn't just sit there, it decayed, constantly, emitting alpha particles that damaged DNA, destroyed bone marrow, and triggered cancers. The victims' skeletons were like slow-burning furnaces, poisoning them from within, piece by piece. Many women experienced spontaneous fractures. One leaned over to pick up her baby and felt her spine snap. Others watched their teeth fall out while brushing. Some had their jaws removed entirely, scraped away by surgeons in desperate attempts to stop the spread. For most, it was too late, and still, the companies operated. The fight dragged on for decades. The last lawsuits were settled in the 1940s. Many of the victims were already gone. Some settlements were as low as $500, barely enough to cover medical bills, let alone lost years. No executives were jailed. No corporate leaders were held personally responsible. But the women had changed history. Their suffering led to landmark labor protections. New laws were enacted requiring worker safety regulations, medical monitoring, and federal oversight of hazardous materials. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, owes part of its creation to them. So does the concept of corporate liability for industrial poisoning. And yet, it came at an unbearable price. The dial faces they painted still glow in the dark today. Many of their bones still radiate in quiet graves. Cemeteries in New Jersey and Illinois have plots with measurable levels of radiation. Some bodies had to be buried in lead-lined coffins. The paint was called undark. But for the Radium Girls, the truth was blinding. They were lied to, they were poisoned, and they were forgotten until their bones reminded the world of what was done to them. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.